Well guys, we got a Chevy here. As you can hear, it's got a little tick going on. Cylinder 4 has a straight misfire. I've already condemned the lifter. This has the cylinder deactivation in it. So I'm gonna shut this bad boy down. I'm gonna do a compression test on that cylinder real quick. Just make sure it's the valve's not opening and not something else. And then she's coming apart, she's getting lifters. New cylinder deactivation or DOD. Yeah, so I'm gonna tear this apart tomorrow night and put it back together the following night, have this thing running by Friday. Yeah, so let's get to work. I got the compression gauge in cylinder 4. I'm gonna go inside, I'm gonna hold the gas pedal to the floor, that puts it in clear flood mode. I'm gonna let it pump 3 times and we'll see where that gets up to. Alright, we got plenty of compression, so we're going to move ahead. We're going after the lifters. So guys, here's a little tip. Everybody does things a little different. I've been turning wrenches since 2007. Somewhere around there. I still do things the same way. So all the superficial stuff goes in the top compartment. The intake stuff will all go in here. I just kind of work my way down, and as I get to the bigger stuff, that's where these bigger compartments come in. So alternator bracket, when that comes off, it's going to go here, and we just keep piling in. So, you know, I'm not one of those throw everything into the same bucket kind of guys, but I'm not far from it. Now, with the exceptions of this bracket right here bolted into the head, you could almost just leave the belt on in these motors. They're so easy to work on, guys. Minus fighting with every wire on the way out. There's just a few bolts that hold this together, and then there's a bulkhead connector on top, and then boom, get to the valve cover. What we want to do here is we want to get to the intake. Then we're going to take our blower and we're going to blow off everything that we can so that nothing goes into the motor that we don't want in the motor. So let's get the other side done. Ta-da! So I always draw the belt pattern, guys. On a Chevy, it's an H pattern. I'm kind of just doing this to show you guys the easy way. This will be the crank, that's the tensioner, that's the idler pulley, alternator, power steering, and water pump. That way when you're going back together, it's easy. And I just put it in my little tray. Yeah, you can figure it out, no problem, but anything that you can do to make it easier and faster, highly recommend. So what I do before I go back in is I'm going to pound these out this way. You got to be very careful in doing that because you can break this bracket real easy. These are hose clamp pliers. They're designed to go around a hose, but they fit perfectly on connectors to release them. Come on, baby. There it is. There's the evap line. There it is. So we got everything disconnected from the intake now. It's nice and easy. And now we just shoot off the bolts. Okay guys, so we got both valve covers off. I want to show you. There's cylinder 2. There's cylinder 2. Cylinder 4. Oh, that's not supposed to do that. So the push rod is still there. I can actually kick it over. Can I get it out? Oh, it's so close. It wants to come out, but that's our toasted lifter right there. So the cylinder head's coming off still. All these guys over here, these are all good. But cylinder 4 is one of the four cylinders that goes night-night. I don't remember all of them, but I do know 4 is one of the cylinders. I want to say 5 might be another cylinder, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's pull it apart. These cylinder heads, they use 5 10mm bolts across the top, and then they use some big girls inside. Motherfucker. Fucking Snap-on, dude. Look at that shit. I'm telling you guys, Snap-on is turning into trash. Check the lifters. Sorry, push rods, whatever these things are. Not bent, not bent, not bent. Way down there. Not bent. There we go. Alright guys, so let me show you what these lifters look like. 16 lifters total. We have the active and then a normal. So a normal lifter, you get a spinny spin here. That's going to spin on the cam lobe, and then it goes up and down, and then you have your lash adjuster that's right here. These have a hole in the side of them, and what you do is you put that hole up and you get ready to soak them. So we're going to put them in some oil, that way it gets most of the air out, so when we put it in there, there's no dry start and they can pump right up and not spit something out. The difference between these two is that this one here is for the cylinders that shut down, and this one's for the rest of them. This is a very robust lifter. In fact, they don't fail very common at all. However, this one here, if we didn't have this spring here, it would give it that rocking feeling, such as that number 4 rocker that was bad. Because my guess is when we pull that out, we're going to find that this spring is bad. But it's kind of a shitty design. Yeah, I'm sure it helps with fuel economy, but never been a fan of this. And we've had several failures. So what we do is we make sure that this little bad boy that's been sitting on the shelf for God knows how long, it's nice and dusty. Alright, so that just got the brake cleaner baptism. Nice and clean now. So, put them all in here. I've already pre-cut all this. What I do is I put these holes facing up. That allows the air to escape. Some people will set them in there so that that's up on top like that. I'm sure there's a right and a wrong way. I'm sure I'm doing it wrong, but that's how I've done it pretty much the entire time I've been doing this. This doesn't waste any oil either, because the oil that we put in here, we turn around and we dump it into the car after we do the oil change to get all the coolant out of the oil. Those of you that don't know, when you do a head gasket on a vehicle, it mixes coolant and oil in the base, and you always have to replace the coolant, you always have to replace the oil. So, now we're just gonna give these a little drink. Nom noms. Nommy nommies. Now let me show you what it does. See the bubbles coming out of the rockers? That's getting into all the good stuff. And then there's bubbles coming out of these little holes. And those ones too. They'll start coming out in a second. They do take a minute to get in there. See if I can catch one in action here. Nope, can't catch one in action. Not gonna sit here all night and film waiting for an air bubble to come out. Oh, there was one. Bloop, bloop. And then one's starting to form there. Anyways. So guys, I got a lot of cleaning to do. A lot. And that's the biggest step on these. I'm gonna get these heads clean, and then I'm gonna blow them all off and make sure that they're ready to go. And once I do that, I'm gonna let them out here dry. I like to spray them all down with WD-40 real quick, just a quick dusting that dissipates the water. I also spray them with an air gun. But while these are drying off after I clean them and the valve covers and everything else, then I'll pull the center tray out, I'll pull the lifters out. At that point, those will be ready to go in, and then, you know, start reassembling. Once it's all back together, I drain the oil out of it, spin a filter, fill the coolant and fill the oil. We fire her up, listen to her tick for a second, and then it goes away. So, I'm not going to show you cleaning all this stuff because that's utterly boring. I'm not in a rush, but I'm in a rush. I told this guy I'd have it back to him Friday. Tonight's Wednesday night. He also added on a motor mount, so I'm going to try and flop out the motor mount right now. Well, the heads are off. This is the perfect time to make it nice and easy. So I'm going to throw in a motor mount, and then I'm going to get back to everything else. But it'll all be clean. Motor mount will be in, and it might still be the same day when you guys see me next. As you can see, the heads look a little cleaner, so do the valve covers. We have the new engine mount in there. Ooh, some asshole with a train horn. And now we're gonna do this base plate, and I'm gonna let the lifters soak overnight. They're still bubbling. Plus, I'm not really in the mood to put the heads on tonight, so I'm gonna let that sit overnight. But I do want to get the new base plate in. So, let's do that. So two of them were loose. So there's the inside of the valley of the motor. We are going to look in here, looking at the cams. I don't see any crazy wear on it, no torn up lobes or anything. That's a good thing. So the lifters, we're going to pull out these buckets. These come out, so do the lifters. First I'm going to scrape all this up, clean the gasket material off. This is what the bottom side of that piece of shit looks like. Ooh la la. And there's the top side. So this turd right here is what goes bad, as well as the springs break, which I think that's what we're going to see on this one. But I'm not going to bore you guys cleaning it, so I'll be back in a minute. It's not supposed to be under there. There it is. We'll look up torque on this in a minute. More than likely it's going to be a couple of Ugga-Duggas. we get the torque specs. Fellas, there's the two little fellas. All right. So here's number 4. Let's take a look at this together. What do you say? One in number 4, the other in number 4. So collapsed and stuck lifter. That's the cause of the clatter right there. So something jammed it up inside here. I was expecting maybe a broken spring or something, but not the case. So yeah, brokey. Showed you guys the point of failure on this. I'm gonna bang this out now. Just gonna finish up the other 4 buckets, and buckets means this. Get all the lifters in it, lubed up. I'm gonna come back, I'll show you guys how to clean and prep the surface, and then we're moving on. Alright guys, so when we're doing cylinder heads, they have plugs in the head, the alignment dowels. Just these little fellas here. We need to put these in the block. This plays a crucial role in holding the head gasket where the head gasket belongs. So we're going to take these out, we'll clean up the head, throw the head gasket on there, and we'll be setting this thing into place. So pretty exciting. These, as most do, this has a front and a front. So this is a universal gasket, it goes either way, but this has to go in the front. And the reason being is the holes back here. So a lot of you guys, well, some of you guys may be used to putting copper coat on everything. These gaskets go on dry. It says right in the instructions they go on dry, and I've always done them that way. So I use copper coat on a lot of different cars, but when it specifically says dry, I'm gonna go dry. So let me catch you up to speed, guys. I took a vacuum and I put the vacuum down in each of these holes, and then I sprayed it out with brake cleaner and did it again. Here's the vacuum I use. It's a Mighty Vac, and it's got a, you know, pretty good sized little tube on it there. So I work that up and down in the holes in there and make sure they're dry. If there's liquid in there and you put these heads on, you put the bolts in, you run a high risk of hydrolocking that hole and cracking the block. So not really top of my priority list. So let's slap some heads now. There we go. So that's gonna sit right there. Sits down on those pucks that we were talking about. Alright. There we go. The heads be heading. So for our bag of goodies here, we have a lot of brand new head bolts. They come individually wrapped from the dealer, and they have sealant on the threads. You don't reuse these head bolts. Like, no. More parts issues. Wrong head bolts. Alright guys, so back from the parts store. Typically what you want to do with head bolts is you want to lube the threads, and then lube the head here. On these particular ones, all I'm going to do is lube the head because they have thread sealant on them. So I'll show you guys that real quick. So I usually dip my finger in some oil, just put it around the base of the bolt, slip her in. There she goes. Okay guys, first pass, 22 foot-pounds. So the pattern is pretty typical. Center, bottom, left, top, right, bottom. You kind of work in a circle, so to say. Oh yeah. So guys, I made a boo-boo. I never extracted that bolt that broke in the back of the cylinder head. So now I get to do it on the vehicle. Let me know what you would do. Would you leave it there? Or would you take it all back apart? Just to fix it. I can tell you what I'm gonna do. Well, let me show you how to extract it on the car. Alright, let's get the welder. Good little booger there. Sometimes this comes right out. Sometimes this takes a few shots. Let's see what we got here. This one's gonna come right out. Please. Feels like it. Oh, that like never happens. Oh, it's coming out, guys. Ow, fucking hot. Let's show you guys this. So here it is, guys, and what I do is it was broken flush with the surface there, so I weld a little booger to it, and then I put a nut over the booger and weld it to that. Now the thing is, you got to get that thing hot. You got to stick it to it real good right away, or you're going to run into issues. Alright, so you can see in there exactly how it is. So I grew a little booger on it and then welded to that. Now you have to use a carbide burr tool and really chew it up so that it's a clean metal surface, or it'll never go. And then once it breaks off, you have to grind it again and re-weld it. So it can get to the point where it's a little sketchy, to say the least. But that's out. Wasn't much of a setback at all. So what would you guys have done? Would you have torn it back apart? Or would you have just put it back together and said, I see nothing wrong? Alright guys, so we're having more GoPro issues. Yay! So I've already torqued down the rest of the cylinder head. The next step after the 22 foot-pounds was going to be a 90 degree. After the 90 degree, we have the 45 degree. So after I went ahead and took care of both of the remaining torque specs on the cylinder head, I looked over to notice that the GoPro had fallen asleep again. So we woke her back up and kept going with this. So you got me torquing the rocker arms on there. I forget what the torque was exactly on them, but it wasn't very much. And then tossing the valve cover on here, making sure that we don't pinch any seals or roll the lip of the new valve cover seal, which is very easy to do. So set that bad boy into place, give it a couple twisties, and then go ahead and set it with my 1/4 inch Milwaukee. I always like to set the bolts with this just because I don't like to spend all day, and then I'll use the actual ratchet as a manual ratchet in order to torque them the way I want them. I'm setting the intake in there. There's a lot of wires and stuff on this, so it doesn't set in there very nice. You kind of got to hold a bunch of stuff out of the way and wiggle it in and keep the bolts out of the way and yada yada. So we got it finally set into place there, got the bolts started, and then I went ahead and ran them all down. So now we're going to put the front alternator bracket back into place. That way we can run the wires where we need them. We're setting the left side coil pack in here, and I've already repositioned those front tabs for the alternator. I remember in the beginning I was saying I'm going to give it a little tappy, so we gave it the old tappy and reset those little dowel pins, and voila, just like that, I got it all back together and it's ready to be started. And due to the wonderful nature that is GoPro, I didn't get most of it on film. So let's fire her up and see what she's got to say. Okay guys, we have a dipstick tube right there. It's going down and in. We are fully seated into the dipstick location. So I've drained the oil, spun a filter on it. It's time to fill coolant, fill oil, and bang! Uh-oh. So let's get it done. So guys, this is a coolant evacuator. What it does is it sucks all the air out of the system. At the same time, you're also checking for leaks, but it makes it so that when you refill the cooling system, you can literally get in it and drive it. You do not need to worry about it burping and doing all that other stuff. So let's get to sucking. On this particular one, we got to spin on a coolant adapter because there is a overflow that goes through the neck of it, and I use the cone style of tool, and sometimes they don't work on everything. We're gonna let that go until it goes pop, 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 pop. We can turn it off and check it. We can see the needle staying still, it's not dropping in pressure, so we can pretty much verify we got no leaks. It's good, we're negative 25 psi, so first gallon's gone. Second gallon's gone. There's gallon number 4, guys, and the hose is back to its original shape. Needle's down to 0. That's it. Cooling system has been charged. I typically put Mobil 1 in almost everything, guys. It's very fairly priced and it's a really good oil. Now in my truck I run Schaefer's or Rotella, but that's a diesel. Don't get me wrong, I will run other oils, Castrol or whatever, if that's all they have, but Mobil 1's like 25 bucks a jug and it's really good oil. Fun story, when I was younger I had a Chevy Avalanche and had a misfire for 10,000 miles, and I was young, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I did the plugs, the coil, and then I just ignored it for a while, but it was always in the back of my mind. And somebody had told me that that's probably a cylinder head, so I was like, okay. So I took the head off and I didn't find anything wrong with the head, and then I called my buddy Steve and I was like, hey dude, I got the head off and I'm not finding any issues on this thing. And he's like, well, you're past the point of no return now. You should have done a leak down, you should have done this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, oh crap, that's cool. So ended up pulling the piston out on that cylinder and found it cracked. In fact, hold on, here it is. So it had cracked those rings. I got the rings right here, so those sit in there like that. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but so this is the actual piston out of my truck. I took it down, I bought a new piston from Chevy, I transferred the rings over and dropped the piston into the truck and drove that thing 20,000 more miles, and it ran fantastic. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but Mobil 1 is all I ran in that truck, and 10,000 miles those helper or the ring keepers were broken, and it never scarred a cylinder wall. The perfect cross hatching, it was in great shape. So yeah, fun story. Alright guys, let's hook up the battery. Final look over, everything looks nice. So we have oil, we have coolant, we have things torqued down. Let's we're gonna first put your foot to the floor. That puts it in clear flood mode. We want to make sure we're in clear flood mode. That way we can pump up the lifters before it starts. We're going to do this for a little bit here. I want to make sure I get good flow. We got a new oil filter. We're starting to get the gauge to move. Compression's starting to sound a little better. Gauge is up. I'm off the pedal. There she goes. Still watching our oil pressure. There's full pressure. It's gonna run like garbage for a second. Starting to smooth right out. Look at that, guys. Now you're gonna have some ticking and stuff for a couple seconds. It's gonna, don't freak out. Of course we have a bunch of smoke burning off the exhaust and all that fun stuff. So, yep, we're gonna let her warm up for a minute. Want to let her run, smooth out, pump up the lifters, and then we'll go take her for a swing real quick. Alright guys, she's all done. We got oil pressure, nice and smooth. She's good. Time to go home, little fella. So, thanks for watching Penguin's Garage, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.